So welcome to my presentation. It's called Business Brains to Data Gains, a Literacy Revolution. So the agenda today, oh, is it working? Yeah. So here's my agenda today. So I'll be talking about data literacy versus business literacy, company maturity versus data maturity, the inconsistencies you can get with data, how to win over stakeholders, the importance of having a single source of truth when it comes to data, and building reports for adoption. So just a little bit about me. My name is Shamim Munshi. I am a Power BI developer and data consultant. I work in data analytics in the Power Platform. I'm a science and engineering graduate originally from Imperial College. I'm a qualified Scrum Master in MCT, and I'm a career changer from business admin to tech and data. I've also put the link here for my website, which is about having careers in this space, and here are my certifications. So this is a little bit of a diversion, this slide, from the rest of my talk, but I thought it was important to put this in, mostly because a few people have told me at events, and I've actually seen a few LinkedIn posts as well, where some people in the Power Platform space do not feel that Power BI belongs in the Power Platform now that it's part of Fabric. And I just wanted to explain my perspective. So I see the rest of the Power Platform tools as essentially data tools. So, for example, I see Power Apps as a data collection and validation tool. I see Power Automate helping me to migrate data and automate processes. I see Copilot Studio, say if there's a chatbot that's been created in there, I see that as a data retrieval tool. So basically, I see all these tools as helping me with the quality of the data so that by the time it gets to me at the reporting stage, it's of a better quality and I don't have to do so many transformations before I represent it. So today we'll be focusing on reporting. So what is data literacy? Well, data literacy is basically understanding, interpreting, and using your data effectively to make better business decisions. It also allows you to spot patterns and opportunities with your business, but it also enables everyone to handle data responsibly. And as Meg was talking about AI, it's really important in this day and age to reduce security risks and improve compliance. I've just put a little cartoon here where a data professional is asking his colleagues, how do we make a business more data literate? And then one of his colleagues says, well, shouldn't we also become business literate? And then he is chucked out of a window. But the point is, we also, well, whoever works with data also needs to be business literate. You need to understand the business, the nature of the business, their terminology, what their goals are, what their challenges are, what their priorities are, and in order to support them with their decision making. So I want to introduce you to a fictitious company called Chai and Coffee that was basically created last year. They have 3 branches in London, Stratford, Hackney, and Greenwich. And they're at a point where they're looking to attract investors and they want to expand their business. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about the difference between company maturity and data maturity because they're two different things. So imagine we had some kind of arbitrary assessment where you get a score out of 5, depending on how mature you are, company wise and data wise. A company with high company maturity would have strong leadership, perhaps automated processes, maybe a global presence, whilst our fictitious company here is at the bottom and has a low score because it's a new company. It has a local presence and most of its processes are manual. But you can see here, for example, you can have a multinational company with quite a high company maturity. So maybe it's got a really strong, global presence and leadership, but maybe all its data is in Excel spreadsheets. And then you can have like an online company that probably hasn't got a global presence as yet, but started off as an app, is already doing targeted marketing, using analytics for forecasting, and therefore has a high data maturity. So they're not the same thing. And when you deal with stakeholders, you need to know where they're at and meet them at their level. And so, yeah, so basically, a company with high data maturity is using innovative methods and predictive analytics. So if I just dig a little bit deeper into the different analytic types that businesses use to improve their decision making, most businesses are using descriptive analytics. So they're looking at what is happening. And then fewer companies are looking at diagnostic analytics, which is looking at why something is happening. And then even fewer are using predictive analytics, which is looking at what is likely to happen. And then fewer than that are using prescriptive analytics, which is looking at what action to take. And then very few companies are at this stage. And at this stage, when you're using cognitive analytics, you're looking at AI, you're probably using machine learning to mimic human behavior to inform your business strategy. So that's looking at deeper insights. So back to our fictitious company, we have the director here of Chai and Coffee and the branch managers of the three branches. So we've got the Stratford branch manager, the Hackney branch manager, and the Greenwich branch manager. And so, as I said before, the director's looking to expand the business. However, he's a little bit concerned at the moment because he's been looking on social media and he's seeing a lot of complaints about the Greenwich branch, about their serving times. And so he's called all his managers into a meeting and he wants to see what their data is. So he wants to compare the serving times between the branches. But as they're having this discussion, they realize they have a problem. So the Stratford branch manager is measuring the serving time from when the order is being prepped. The Hackney branch manager is measuring the serving time from when the order is placed. The Greenwich branch manager is measuring the serving time from when the system's acknowledged, when it's acknowledged in the system. And so, therefore, their business processes are not aligned, and therefore, they've got inconsistent data definitions of serving time. And you can't compare what their serving times are because they're measuring different things. And so now the director realizes they have a problem and wants to call in a data expert to help them out. So basically, you're all a consultancy, you're all consultants, and Chai and Coffee is your client. They want a sales report for a data-driven strategy to grow business. And they also want you to help them sort out their data. So what steps should you take? Well, if you think about the typical departments that are in their average business, so you're talking about senior leadership, operations, finance, human resources, etc. And you think about what teams need to be involved when you're trying to implement a data strategy, you're trying to make a data-driven culture. Well, it's all of them. All of them need to collaborate because you need to get everyone on board. You need to make them understand why is it that they need to follow a process a certain way. Why is it they need to enter a data a certain way? And then you start implementing solutions to help them with that process. But all this takes time. It's a long process. It's not something that's overnight. And so what you say to Chai and Coffee, that you're going to help them with their data strategy and data governance and strategy is a really big topic, and I'll link to a resource at the end if you want to read more on this topic. But this is more of a long-term job that you're doing for them. But their priority at the moment is getting their report done so that they can show that to their investors. So what you need to do is you want to set up a workshop so you can gather the requirements for the report. Now, what you should do, because everyone's busy, frontline managers are busy, senior leadership probably have meetings back to back, and you want to optimize their time basically. So what you're doing is you're trying to prepare for the workshop. And what I would always advise is, yeah, definitely research the industry, research the organization, but also look at how if they're used to their data being represented in a certain way. So this is a really good website, and I've put a QR code there, which shows what chart types are prominent in what industries. For example, in finance, the profit and loss waterfall chart is quite common. In logistics, heat maps are very popular. Another thing you should do is prepare wireframing and templates. So find out what the company theme is, what their logo is, and get that prepared. A lot of people use Figma, some people use PowerPoint, and some people just use a tool like Power BI itself. Okay, so then you meet your stakeholders. The director's already told you what he wants to see in that report, but he doesn't want to be involved in the meetings in between. He just wants to see the finished product. So your next meeting is with the middle managers, which are the branch managers, and the business support team. And I just want to say something about the business support team. I've called them business support, but they're known as different things in different organizations. So they might be known as the executive team or the, business analysts or business administrators. But I like to think of them as the engine room of an organization. They tend to be, after a data team, they tend to be the most highly data literate people in the organization. They know what their challenges are because they deal with leadership, they deal with frontline staff, they deal with all different types of people, and they know what the challenges are, where the data is stored, and they can give you access as well. I would also advise that you don't meet with middle managers and other staff with senior leadership. The reason being is you often find that these groups don't vocalize what the issues are with their processes in front of managers, or not fully, basically. So you want to keep that separate. I also wanted to mention that in order to have a good success rate with your project, I would always advise asking the business support team if you can liaise with a named contact, so you can just fire off questions to them that you have during your project. So what you need to do during the meeting is you need to play data detective, because in real life, data is so messy. People stop using systems, they implement other systems, they stop using a process, they then implemented another process. There was a hacking event, there was a power cut, then they started to you use an Excel spreadsheet for data. Data is very, very messy in real life. So you need to find out all this information. You need to find out what systems they have used, where they're storing the data. And one thing to note, though, that I really want to say is quite often stakeholders say, just put everything on your report, just put all the data on there. And the thing is, as I've put in this little picture, that's no good, because if without kind of a targeted focus, it loses its meaning, basically. And so scope creep is a massive issue in business intelligence. And so you really want to narrow down what the focus is. So some of the questions you might want to ask is, what are the top three problems that you have to solve? What are your main KPIs? And this is a prioritization matrix that I often use. So I basically look at what has the highest impact and is the easiest thing to do, and make that my first priority. And the things that have a lower impact and are quite challenging to do, consider eliminating them. You essentially need to become business literate. So you need to learn their job. You need to know what are their processes, when is that data inputted, how is it inputted, who is putting it in, what systems are they using, where is it stored. And you need to ask all these questions, and you need to find out how that data is traveling throughout the company, so it's data lifecycle. But at each point, make sure that you're speaking their language, you're using their terminology, so that they understand what you're talking about. Don't just speak in data or tech terms. So the next stage of what you want to do is you want to find out where the data is, and take an inventory of what data they have and who owns it, and basically where it lives. So that is called a data catalog, and that is done at the organization level. And then at the department level, you want to create something which is called a data dictionary. And this is where you define what the data is. So when I've put field here, I mean column name. So you have a column name and you define what that means. So for example, in the early example, when I gave about serving times, it would say serving start time, and define what that means. Is it when the order's placed, or etc. So this makes sure that everyone's consistent with the data definition. You don't get data silos. You don't get people gathering inconsistent data. The other thing I wanted to mention was, in business intelligence, quite often people wanted the report yesterday. And this is a methodology that was basically created in the late 90s. It's called CRISDM, and it was for data analysts and data scientists. And basically, it talks about an understanding of the business, then have an understanding of the data, prep the data, model the data, evaluate what you have, show the stakeholder, and you just keep following this process until you're ready for deploying your solution. However, at each stage, it emphasizes about documentation and things like that. But nowadays, I would say people follow this very loosely and combine it with like agile, iterative development, because as I say, business intelligence is very fast moving and you don't have time to spend in what we call in data in the weeds for so long before you start adding business value. Until you've actually shown something to the business, you're not really adding any value. So I would say just bring all the data together. It doesn't have to look pretty, just build something and show them and ask them, is this what you wanted? Because many times it isn't. And so you're not wasting everyone's time. You can do all the optimizing and, making everything nice later on. Another thing I wanted to mention was I see a lot in LinkedIn where people say don't build dashboards if there's not a proper like business purpose. And one of the complaints that I've seen is people say, I just want to see my data. And I just think as a former business user, that is actually a legitimate query, a reason to have a dashboard. The reason why I say that is because if you have a new business or you've got new contracts, so basically you've got new data coming in and you've never seen what that data looks like. How do you know, for example, that you're categorizing that data correctly? So, for example, chai and coffee here, they've categorized their coffee according to product, but they've put their bakery goods in just one, they've lumped it in all one category called bakery. And so when they look at the visualization, they think, oh wow, bakery goods are doing so good. Let's invest more in that so we can get more revenue. When actually, if you categorize all the coffee in one coffee group and the tea and then bakery, you can see actually the other two categories, coffee and tea, are bringing in most of the revenue. So, I mean, this is a simple example, but you can see how the consequences would be for other organizations. Another thing I wanted to point out was be careful if you're using Power BI, be careful with misleading data representation. A lot of the time when you don't have space on your report and you just put a little chart somewhere, Power BI truncates the y-axis, which then exaggerates what is happening to the stakeholder. So here it looks like there's a massive dip in revenue on Thursday, which can panic the business user. However, if you were to stretch that out, start at 80K, here I've put an average line here, which is 100K per day. And you can see that the revenue on Thursday dips to 97K, which isn't such a big dip in consideration that there's 100K average revenue coming in every day. So always look at visuals from the business point of view, not just in a data perspective. Think about what it's telling them. And I also wanted to say that you make sure you build for adoption, make sure you make it something that business users want to use. So have a landing page, do some storytelling. So you're doing like an overview and then you're looking deeper and deeper into the analytics. One thing important to remember in data is you always build for scale. You already know that chai and coffee want to expand. They may have regions in the future, so they might want slices saying regions. So always bear that in mind. And make it interactive, have good aesthetics. You might also want to implement row level security. So for example, the director can see everyone's data, whereas branch managers can only see their branch's data. And I've just put a cartoon here. Basically, the more information, the more overloaded your report is, the less people get out of it. And so here I want to talk about you want to guide the user. Now, I've heard some people, some data professionals say if a stakeholder doesn't know how to read a report or a dashboard, they need more training. And I'm here to say that I don't think that's the case. If I go to if I download an app from Google, let's say, there's no user guide with there. It's just intuitive how I use it. It's the same thing with if I was to look at analytics in, a newsletter or something, and there's no user guide with it. It's just intuitive about how I should read it. And I feel like you should definitely help guide the user. This helps them become more data literate. So here I've put a trend line to show what the trend is. I put a little forecast here. Here I've highlighted what the highest revenue is. So basically, we live in the what we call like the Twitter generation, where content is being consumed in short formats. So, for example, like YouTube Shorts, and also business users are busy. Frontline managers need to be, on the front line. Regional managers might always be, on the road. People are busy. They need to gain their insights at a glance. And so that you need to make sure that at a glance they can get the insights that they need. There is a law in psychology called the Miller's Law, which says that the average human being can consume 5 to 7 bits of information at a time. And so you need to bear that in mind when you're building your reports. I also just wanted to make mention of UI and UX because there was a principle called the F principle, which is here. And that's where you want to put your navigation and your main metrics that you want the business user to see. I just wanted to talk about Copilot in Power BI. So there is this movement in the data world called data democratization, and where people envision a future where there will be like self-service analytics. And what that means is in the future, business users can basically query, have a query and then get AI producing analytics and a summary for them. It is in preview at the moment. I have made it work for very simple data models. Let me show you what I mean. So in order to prepare for a future where there is going to be self-service analytics, we need to make sure that we're labeling our tables so that they make sense, and columns as well, so to make it easier for AI to retrieve the information. I just wanted to make mention that often on LinkedIn, I hear data professionals and others, some Power Platform people as well, complaining that stakeholders ask for export to Excel button in the report and they find it very offensive. I just wanted to say, as a former business user, I think that's amazing when people ask for that. The people that ask for that tend to be very highly data literate. They want to use your report in a different way. They want to use the underlying data set. They're probably the only people who appreciate the hell you went through in data modeling to get that pretty dashboard. And they're so appreciative that you brought all this table of data from all different departments, brought it all together, made different relationships, and basically they're now at a position where they can create their own data model in Excel, perhaps, and even create their own visuals. What I would say is let them play about with the data set, and then after a couple of weeks, go up to them and say, "Oh, did you build anything, that suited you? Would you like me to implement that in the report?" Because then it gives you a better idea of what works for them, and you can take that knowledge with you to another project. So it can be mutually beneficial. And the other thing I wanted to mention was you should use hierarchies when you're building your report. And so, as I said earlier, you want like kind of an overview, and then you kind of want pages that are grouped together with analytics. So here, this is a page that's full of analytics for the products. You can also use drill through and drill down so that the users aren't overwhelmed with information. If they want more detail, that there's always a facility there for them to drill down. And here I've used some conditional formatting. So I've used gradient colors to basically highlight what the highest values are and what the lowest values are. So definitely build that into your reports. And that helps with their data literacy as well. And the last thing I wanted to mention about your report is often in business meetings, the managers are looking at a report And then someone says, "Oh, what's the start date of the next period again?" And then someone else says, "Oh, what does that column mean again? Or how did they get that data again?" And then you get people exiting the report, going on websites, or maybe going on Teams, contacting their colleague, trying to get clarification. And so, what I would always say is try and build a comprehensive solution in Power BI. So, ask your stakeholder, what information do you need to hand in your meetings? Would you like me to bring that into the report? So here I've put the data dictionary here, but you can also put hyperlink buttons to websites that they may need to refer to. Some people like reports embedded on their team SharePoint page, so they know that they're always going to keep on top of it and look at it. Some people like email subscriptions. So definitely ask the stakeholder what suits them. And here I've got an example of a report that's optimized for phone usage, for example, regional managers who are always on the road. And so, in summary, you need to understand the business, their processes, how they collect data, and what their challenges are. You need to meet them at their data maturity level. And you basically, so the culture change for data is quite a lengthy process, and you need to bring people on board. You need to make them understand. People don't do things without understanding why. So you need to make them understand, oh, this is why you need to enter the data in a certain way. You need to follow this business process, because if you don't, then we won't get the data, then we won't meet our KPIs, then we won't meet our contract obligations for this client, and we may lose the contract. In those terms, you need to basically explain it in business terms, and then see what processes you need to iron out, and then look at solutions. So you can't do any of this in isolation. It needs to be a collaborative effort. And always when you're talking about data, speak their language, and make sure that you have a single source of truth when it comes to data, so people can trust what you're showing them. They know that they know they don't have to kind of second guess and kind of be suspicious of what you've put on the dashboard, that they know that that is truly what the data is showing. And make sure you build in lockstep with your key stakeholders, so there's not at the end. I mean, I really feel that if at the end they really don't know how to use your report, and you've done documentation, you've done a demo, I just think you just haven't involved them enough in the development phase. Always report from a business perspective, and export to Excel is basically using your report in a different way. I've just listed here some books that I think are quite useful if you want to explore different topics in this area. So we have here Applied Microsoft BI for Power BI for beginners. This is a really good book, Show Me the Numbers, if you want to know more about data visualization and how to represent data for business users. This book is a really good book that I'm reading at the moment, Supercharged Power BI for DAX and Power Query. And this book, the Data Warehouse Toolkit, this is a bit like a Bible in the data world when it comes to data modeling. This book was first published in the 1980s, but it is as relevant today as it was then. And this is a very popular book at the moment, Humanizing Data Strategy, and it's all about data strategy and governance. And I've just listed some content creators and events that I think will be helpful if you want to know more. So I've cheekily put my own website at the top if you want to know more about a career in this area. Here is a really great YouTube channel called Guy in a Cube. It covers so many different aspects of Power BI, and actually some aspects of Fabric now too. The Devon and Cornwall Microsoft User Group, which is actually happening now, is a really, really good user group, and they're very well established. They have high profile speakers, and actually in a couple of weeks they're doing a session which is on integrating Power BI with the Power Platform. So I think this might be useful to many of you. This guy I have to give credit to, Gilbert Boom. I basically used his cartoons for this presentation, but he's a really good person to follow if you want to know issues that people have with data. And if you want to practice Power BI and you want a data set, this is a really good website, Maven Analytics. This is where I got my data set for this presentation from. And finally, this event is such a great event to go to. It's called Big Data London. It happens every year in September. It's completely free. People all over the world come to this event, and it covers every single aspect of data, from data culture to AI to data visualization to recruitment. And basically, most organizations are generating data. So you are going to find something that's relevant to you. And it's, it's so well catered. I've never seen an event as well catered as this one. You've got vegan free, gluten free, you've even got a prayer room, you have a quiet room for neurodiversity. It is truly amazing. And you've got cafes, there's even a bookshop there. So, I mean, I can't recommend it enough. So if you can, definitely go to this. And that's it. So thank you very much for Chai and Coffee for helping them with their problems. And thank you for viewing my presentation. So are there any questions?
Thanks, Shamim. That was great. Your screen's gone back onto Meg's.
Okay.
Oh, can you stop sharing?
Oh, am I stop sharing? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry. Sorry.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Comments?
I do, but it's not a very serious one. Shamim, what's your favorite graph?
What's my favorite graph? I can tell you what I hate. I hate the pie chart. I hate it. But I try, if they really insist, I do like a donut chart with like because if you think about it, you're asking the users to compare angles. I mean, how complicated is that? That's just, anyway. Yeah, I hate pie charts. But my favorite chart is probably your bog standard column chart, to be honest with you. I just, yeah, that's my favorite one. They always want pie charts.
Donut pie, yes. Pie charts? Anyone in opposition to that?
No, pie charts are crap.
They're horrible. They're horrible. Why? Yeah.
As I say, the entrance then it was really useful. Shamim.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I covered so much in there, but I mean, all these topics, I mean, 14 minutes, it doesn't do justice. If you really want to read on how to implement data strategy, or even the best way to do data visualization, there's so much out there, to help, but they're all massive topics by itself.
I think it's really useful for this audience because we have a lot about Power Apps and Power. There's less content on here for Power BI, and
yeah,
there is crossover.
Yeah, and this is what that's why I put that slide about my perspective, because I do see Power Platform tools as data tools, and so when I hear that Power BI doesn't belong, I'm like, what? No, but that helps me so much, when it comes to me to the reporting stage, and someone's built a Power App, that data is so much cleaner. So yeah, it's interesting.
That is precisely why I got into developing Power Apps in the first place, because I was doing Power BI reports and the data I was dealing with was absolute crap. So I was like, well, sorry, I'll just build a Power App and get the data ingestion that way, and then I can build a report off the back of that. And it worked seamlessly. It was really well for data standardization. And that's the important thing about Power Apps in my books.
Yeah.
Just getting things tidy and away from Excel.
Sorry, I forgot to mention something that I really wanted to tell you guys. But anyway, so I used to work in an organization where everyone knew their employee number, like literally everyone knew. So when you called a department, they wouldn't ask you your name, they wouldn't ask you why you're calling, what's your employee number. And therefore, that little change in their data culture meant that you could track that employee, their whole life cycle throughout the whole entire organization. Because everyone knew their employee number. And it just goes to show the little, changes that you can make improves that quality and the trust in the data so much. So, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention that in the presentation.
Hi, Judy.
I thought I had my camera figured out, but apparently I don't, and I'm embarrassed to see this wonderful room. First of all, Shamim, that was absolutely brilliant what you did in such a short time.
Oh, thank you. I hope I didn't rush through it. I know it was like information overload.
You rushed, but you didn't rush. And I found that really helpful to be in your audience. So thank you for that. But the comment I wanted to make, I guess I might as well turn off my camera, is that I totally understand what you mean by business people needing to see where their data is, to have that understanding. So just to share my experience as a business analyst, now regardless if it's Power Platform or any custom application, is one of the first things I do sometimes is, and it's going to kind of show my age, I think, is the business process engineering and how people map with the swim lanes. And that was kind of useful, and you kind of usually have some workshops for that. But what I found more recently is doing user story mappings or customer journeys. But basically, I really resonate with what you said, because it helps people resonate and relate to what's happening by telling their story to us, and we can then pinpoint or help them bring out their challenges and issues, and everyone's on the same page, because they, like, and it is having to see a picture, a visual, and to step them through that. So it really helps facilitate that, but it's the understanding that is so important for everyone to understand, especially us, the implementers, so we can understand them and their business speak. So much of what you said resonated with me, but also what you shared was so insightful for me. So I also want to really thank you for that.
That's okay. That's a great comment. Thanks, Judy.
That's awesome. I don't know, did I mention this at the start of the call? We've had people join, but this was Shamim's first presentation to a user group.
Yeah, it was.
So well done.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've never done one
Fantastic.
publicly.
I've been, we've been talking about this for a while, haven't we? So
Yeah, you have. Yeah. So without Sarah's encouragement, I don't think I would have done it.
Encouragement, nagging, maybe. I'm
No,
really
Sarah,
proud
you're
of you. Well
brilliant.
done.
Honestly, you're really brilliant. You're a great advocate for newbies in this space. So thank you.
It's important. I think it's important to have a safe space, and there's plenty of there's other opportunities as well if anybody's looking to speak for the first time, either here or in some of the user groups. I can see Ian joined at the last minute. He's up in the northeast. Runs a cool user group up there around Dynamics and Power Platform. Now,
even saw some sun today in the northeast.
What's that?
Even saw some sun today.
You saw the sun, did you? Yeah, it's been beautiful here. I hope you've all had sun. We're dotted all over the place.